Good afternoon, Indira. How are you?
Hi, Neil. I'm good, thanks. We've just had a great chat, so I'm having a good giggle here.
Oh, it's good. We were chatting around your eight elements. We've
Hmm.
been through two so far. We've been through creative visualization. We've
Yep.
been through creative visualization and intentions. And today we're going to dive into mindfulness. And then we've got energy, contemplation, journaling, attunement, and meditation to come.
Yes, we
So
have.
I'm excited about today's because we've just had a chat about how mindfulness is all about releasing that garbage in your brain, in your mind, in your body, in order to unlock energy. And you were just telling me about an amazing experience you had coaching, and we won't say coach's name, I'll let you give that individual a name, and how you helped them through something they're experiencing at work and how that enabled them to embrace mindfulness. Is that fair?
Yeah, fair. Yeah, sure.
So what I'm going to do is maybe just set it up for us. Let's maybe start with, was this individual happy, not happy? And then we'll kind of take it from there in terms of the practice that you led them through, how you helped them unlock the value of mindfulness as a practice, and those insights that your coachee and you actually pulled out of that in order
Yeah.
to bring mindfulness front and center.
Okay. Well, just to let you know that publicly that he has given me permission to talk about this example because it was truly life-changing for him, and I don't say that lightly or tritely. It really was transforming for him, and good work by him as well. So I was working with a business banking centre, and I'd actually done quite a bit of work with them. So I knew the area manager very well. I knew the team, as in the whole of the staff of that centre, quite well. And I'd met, we'll call him Sam. I'd met Sam on a number of occasions. So I had an impression of him that he was a lovely, gentle, very together kind of guy. But I came in one day to see the manager, and he said to me, look, I need you to have a chat with Sam because he's not in great shape and we're really worried about him. And apparently he had started having panic attacks on the way to work, to the extent that he would have to pull over, stop driving the car and just pull over and get himself together enough that he could start driving again and get himself to work. And he was actually their best performing executive at that time. He was the one who brought in the most money for the centre. He had a great reputation amongst his clients. They loved him. And he was extremely good as a team member as well. So he had everything going for him, but he was having these panic attacks. So we got together in a coaching session, and I said to him, so what's going on? Tell me what you're thinking on the way to work that and effectively gets you into a state of panic, and you're having these anxiety attacks. And he was great because he wasn't ashamed to say what was happening, and clearly he trusted me, which was lovely. But he started saying things like, well, I'm just wondering, when I get in there, what's going to be going on in the trenches today? Where are the bullets going to be coming from? I wonder, what's going on with the troops and how they are. And I caught on very quickly to what he was actually saying and started writing down everything that he said and how he described it.
Mm-hmm.
And so when he stopped, I said to him, so you go to war every day? And he was so shocked because he hadn't actually heard what he was saying, his own language. He just wasn't aware of what he was telling me and what he was telling himself. So having sort of explored that a bit more, and I said, so any wonder you're having a panic attack on the way to work if you feel you're coming, you're leaving home from your beautiful family. I know that you're a great guy and you come across as such a centered person, but you're actually preparing to go to war every day. It's not surprising that part of you is going into high alert and going actually into anxiety. So what we did was we started looking at each thing he had told me and coming up with the opposite spin on it. Just as extreme in some ways, but just to start to get a new vocabulary. And I actually use this example in my leadership workshops as an example of the language of a leader and how important the language is in terms of the messages it's going to be conveying and what it means to us in the wording that we use, that's reflecting what we're thinking as well. So to change his thoughts and to change his way of viewing going to work, we started to then look at what's the more positive approach to this that feels authentic to you. And I knew he was a great team leader and he really cared about his team. So he stopped using the word troops and he started talking about the team. And he wasn't talking about bullets, he was talking about the opportunities or the challenges that could be really positive opportunities. And so in the end, he came up with, and it was a saying that he was well known for, was, and it's all good. So, and at the time, I think also often what I do in these situations is come up with basically an affirmation, but a statement that helps them support themselves from going back into the old way of thinking. So he used that statement. It was more of a feeling of I'm going to work and it's all good, you know, like I'm going to this great place to be and it's all good, because that was tended to be a fairly flippant thing he would say. And generally speaking, that's what everybody saw from him, was this really positive approach, because so often he'd say, yep, it's all good. So
can I jump in?
Come in on it. That's
I
the story essentially. Yeah,
I think that's beautiful and that's brilliant, because it's in a way you think I'm a bit shocked. How was he not aware of this? And it took you to repeat back to him in just one sentence. So you're going to war every day, for him to then, for the light bulb to go on and him to actually realize that all of his analogies were actually insinuating that. Now, you shared some information with me before we chatted, and I just want to bring some of that to the forefront. So you mentioned from a study from Yale University that people are not getting any happier. If anything, they're getting less happy, and they're less happy than they were in the 1940s.
Yes.
And on top of that, happiness is a set point, is determined by genetics, about 50%, by life events by 10%. And I even asked you, did he go to war? Has he been in war? And you're like, Neil, he's been far from war. So clearly life event is not the case. But what I loved is 40% happiness is determined by your thoughts and actions.
Yeah. And usually we blame life events. Oh, I was abused as a child. Oh, I got the sack and it took me ages to get the job. Oh, I got divorced. Oh, I've had a breakdown. Oh, all of those life events that are really dramatic and difficult, etc. However, only 10% of essentially of what impacts us and our levels of happiness and our ability to sustain happiness over a long period is life events, and yet we blame them as if they were 100%, and they're actually not. And studies have shown that that life event does actually dissipate dramatically in terms of the impact that it has. So to know that, okay, there are some people, 50% is genetics. Thankfully, I seem to be fairly wired to optimism. There are those we know that depression can be genetic, or that there's some level of anxiety that runs through the family, those sorts of things. But we still have 40% opportunity to improve our happiness levels and sustain happiness for longer. And I know that you know that I would say happiness is a birthright. We carry happiness within us. So this is not about getting happy by external things. This is about uncovering our happiness and allowing happiness to shine. So we've got...
I'm a massive believer of that. Happiness comes from within. You can't, if you rely on it to come from the outside, forget about it. It can, but the source is within.
Exactly. And it's why, you know, classic stories of the superstars who have everything who are still depressed and commit suicide. Nice. So not that, and then we blame all those things. It's not the things, it's what's going on in our minds. So we have a really huge responsibility, really, and a great opportunity to change our whole existence purely by changing what we think and therefore what we do.
So that's something that you've mentioned in your book.
Mm-hmm.
Change beliefs, you reprogram the unconscious. Yeah. I love that because, you know, we think we can't change ourselves. We can't change ourselves from within, but in fact, we can. Tell me more about how you help Sam embrace his mind, embrace this value of mindfulness and being aware of this noise, this chaos, this war that was going on.
Yeah.
And led him down the path to almost reaffirm, as you said, it's all good.
Well, he was happy for me to flip it because he did not want to be in that state. So he had a really good reason for changing. You know, like Simon Sinek says, what's your why? He had a very good why. He hated being in that state in the car and embarrassed in a way that he would be in that state anyway. This is not high performance. Mm-hmm. So, and he also had a gain in that he wanted to be promoted. He wanted to have his own business banking center, become a manager, and he was set up for that in the not too distant future. So he had a very good reason for why he should change, a number of good reasons. And often what happens too is we tend to go for what are we going to lose? So that's a bigger motivator than what are we going to gain? So the idea that he might lose the opportunity to be promoted, because that was real, and I knew that from his manager, the opportunity to be promoted and the ability to run his own business banking centre, not as if he was going to war every day and taking the troops with them. Who was he going to lose that day? So there was that aspect of it is, well, what's the loss, what's the gain if you do or don't change the way you're thinking about this? But the other thing was what I helped him see was he was making meaning from however he was saying, and we needed to think about, all right, well, what's showing up at work that you would make these observations and call them being in the trenches? Mm-hmm. And some of that's inherited from our past leadership regime of, you know, being a very authoritarian and showing courage and bravery, and it is as if, you know, we're combative. And what I don't want us to do is be combative about the mind, because that's the other thing that happens is then we start wanting to bang away at the head or take the mind out and put another one in. We need to be gentle with the mind. So I needed to find gentle ways for him to change the way he was thinking and the meaning he was making from it. And that's why I changed the language. So it's really thoughts. Language comes from thoughts. We choose words based on our thoughts and feelings. But there's also an important thing to understand is to change thoughts and actions. We need to see how thoughts create a feeling. The energy of a thought will create a visceral feeling within us. But likewise, a feeling will create a thought. So they're inextricable. And so this is why mindfulness is so important, because what I needed to then teach him was catch yourself. Can you step back sufficiently when you're going down that track and catch yourself early enough to say, whoa, what did I just say in my head? Or what am I feeling that I would actually verbalize to Indira? This is like going to war. So we had to find out what was he seeing and what was the meaning he was making from it.
So one way I can relate to this is I remember I was having a conversation with my sister, and then I kept saying to her, like, I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm frustrated. And she's like, hang on a second. You feel angry, you feel frustrated, you feel. And I think adding that word was powerful because it reminded me that feelings pass, thoughts pass. It's like you said, if, a thought will create a feeling,
Yes.
you know, sadness creates a feeling of sorrow, sadness, or I feel sad, and that creates a thought of. So you're right. I like how you say they're linked,
Yeah.
but I think that the amazing thing is, like, it's not becoming a victim of that, not becoming a victim of your mind, because I guess your mind will potentially play tricks on you, not intentionally. And again, you're not at war, you're not combative, like you said, with your mind. It's a matter of how do you settle your mind so you can settle your body and your soul, create that balance, as you've called out, in order to then feel that sense of clarity, so you're not tipped one way or the other.
Well, you have to find safety first, because we've talked in the past about how the ego its job is to keep us safe. That's the first place it will go. So, and this is where it's really important with mindfulness to understand how the mind works a little bit better. It's not that difficult, really. We don't have to have that many years of psychology to know. But one of the things is that the mind will automatically go for the thing you need to watch out for, because we're still in the, woolly mammoth coming over the hill about to trample everything and devour us. So I needed to help him feel safe straight away and change the language so that he felt safe. And that's where we also needed to be coaching around, well, what's going on for you that you would be languaging things this way? And part of it was the pressure he was feeling to excel and to reach that goal. So he was creating an obstacle for himself and making it quite a big challenge, even though I also knew it was highly likely he was going to be able to move into a much more senior position. And ultimately he did. That is the great outcome of this story, is that he was able to take on his own. He did get promoted into a more senior role. And the last time I saw him, he was actually in his own business banking centre as a manager. So, and that's why he is so grateful to me, and he is so grateful for this process and understanding, because he clearly did not ever fall into that again. But what we needed was to give him some tools in case he did, because it could have been that the next day the same pattern started up, whether he wanted it or not. And he needed to be able to cut that short so he didn't end up in a state that was really disempowering for him. So we do know, and the thing is, we can't let ourselves off the hook with this, because science backs it up. There's a thing called neuroplasticity, right? Neuroscience tells us we can rewire our brain, we can rewire and we do that through our thinking and the meaning that we make from our thoughts and the words that we use. So it's, in fact, I don't think you and I have talked about this, but I'll throw it in. There's a psychiatrist that I met who actually worked with Leonardo DiCaprio when he was making the film Aviator, and he specializes in obsessive compulsive disorder. So Leonardo DiCaprio ended up with a mild form of OCD after he made that movie, because he'd been to Jeff to find out the subtleties of how would a person with OCD behave without the classic thing of washing hands all the time. It was really do more. So months of working in that way, Leonardo displayed OCD. So Jeff realised then, his name's Dr. Jeff Schwartz, he realised, well, if you can learn it, then you must be able to unlearn it. And he'd worked for nearly, I think, 30 years with people with these disorders, right? But it was this instance that he realised, well, maybe you can undo it. So he has 4 steps to undo it. And he's written a great book called You Are Not Your Brain. But the 4 steps are, the first thing is you just have to recognise, oh, there's that thought again. It's just recognise it. Don't do anything with it other than, there's that thought again. What I want instead, so this is where we go into our creative visualization and intention, is What I want instead is I want to feel calm and I want to get my promotion, and I want to think in really positive ways about this. So what I will do is, and that was the bit I had to teach Sam, was, well, what will you do instead in that moment? Because you must act in the moments. And the thing that Jeff added to that was, then you go back to the original thought and say, and that was of no use to me at all. Because what we need to tell the unconscious is, and the unconscious builds neural pathways for what is helpful. So if you tell it, that's not helpful, that's not helpful, that's not helpful, it actually starts to dissolve the neural pathway in your brain that started to build from, oh, I'm in the car and now I'm going to war, and when I'm halfway there, I'm in panic attack. So rather than go down that path, you go, oh, I'm in the car and I'm really looking forward to seeing my team, and I know there's some great things that we're wanting to achieve at the moment, and that's all going to get me to my promotion and and it's all good. Then he can say, and that old thought, that old furphy is of no value to me at all. And what it does is, in the moment of decision, when you kind of know that you're going a direction that you wouldn't automatically want to go down, instead of that really uncomfortable choice that you have to make, I'm going to go down path A or path B, and I want path B, but path A is still there and it's really strong, pulling me down, you create a new neural pathway of, this is a wonderful thing to be doing, and that one's no use to me at all. So then the ego and the old brain can say, oh, you're actually really safe, it's fine. So I tend to also build in, and I actually was doing this for my own thinking the other night. I was struggling to sleep because of roadworks and my mind was going crazy. And in the end, and I was catastrophizing a little bit as well, which is really not truly my nature. And what I did was I started talking to my mind, saying, that's okay. I know you're just trying to keep me safe. I know you're just telling me to think ahead. And I know that you're just warning me of what to look out for. But actually, I'm lying here and look how calm and quiet it is. And I've got a book to read. So you can calm down now. It's fine. And no, I'm not crazy, but really, that's the kind of thing you have to do.
I'm going to do two things quickly, and then I want to come back. So one is, so if I understand the steps you mentioned,
Yeah.
One, it's recognize it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Two, restate what you want.
Yeah.
Using the creative visualization techniques that we've spoken about, mindful of the intentions that we've spoken about.
Yeah.
The third then is kind of test and measure. And I know we've talked about
take action.
Yeah, capturing how is that going? How is that working? And how are you? And then something we've not mentioned, but we've done in the past is how you celebrate that and almost acknowledge that achievement to kind of build on. That's one thing. The second thing is just the example you gave of you speaking to yourself. And you've shared with me, again, separately, mindfulness it's loving your mind. And if you're in love with your partner, your parents, your siblings, your children, you got to be in love with your mind, which means you're going to have a relationship with your mind. And in a relationship, you've got to communicate. And as you said, you were having a chat with your mind. Hey, everything's going to be okay. As you say, it's all good. You're going to have these moments of doubt, these moments of, so again, you're not being combative with your partner.
No.
You're actually calm and at peace.
Yeah.
Partner.
Yeah, because it's so easy for us to get really judgmental, start cracking the whip, you're an idiot, criticize yourself, go into self-denigration, and that doesn't help either. When we're looking at it from an emotional intelligence perspective, and especially a spiritual intelligence perspective, our mind is so powerful. It is so capable of so much. It's really the interface between consciousness and our higher self, our inner wisdom and our values. And it is how it then helps to work out what we will do and how we will create the life that we really want. So there's no point, I think these days, we do a lot that really weakens the mind. A lot of the way we live and work truly weakens the mind, and we have to work so much harder, and we're not always taught how to build a really strong, clear,
Mind.
calm, and super, what's the word I want to use? A laser-like mind.
No, I agree. And I've challenged you on this because I think despite being someone who is knowledgeable about it, who coaches on it, I'm sure you have your moments where your mind isn't as laser sharp as you'd like it to be knowing this. And I think, I use the example of, there are white belts out there and black belts out there. I'd see you as a black belt. They're white belts who are probably they're just trying to figure out the first kick, the first punch in terms of, so how do I just exercise one step to get closer to having that sharper and clearer mind and that better relationship with my mind. And something you've also mentioned is by practicing mindfulness, again, you monitor the energy of your body, of your soul, of your mind. And I think it's really important because if you're able to do that, whenever there's a storm happening around you, so it's not in your mind, it's actually a true storm. Let's say Sam was actually going to war and it wasn't all happy sunny days. Yeah, then he wants to make sure that he's steady in the eye of that storm and he's not being rattled by the outside and the inside.
Yeah, his team does not need him to go into an anxiety attack in that moment.
Correct, because if anything, that's when you need to be steadfast. And it's funny because, they say the reason why Hitler lost the war was because he fought a two-front war, one with the East and one with the West. Personally, we shouldn't be fighting an internal and an external battle at the same time. So if we can control the inside and monitor the inside, you're absolutely right. Again, one thing you mentioned, and I just want to make sure folks hear this because this is beautiful. The art of mindfulness and practicing it can really build self-awareness. It can settle and balance your system and take you forward into deeper wisdom and enlightened action. Again, amazing words for a powerful practice. And Indira, I just want to ask you, maybe as we kind of close and wrap up, but from your perspective, what do you think comes in the way for people to love their mind, to love their self, to practice mindfulness, that you've kind of caught on to, like, aha, if they can just do that one or two or three things, that can help them truly unlock this potential?
I think part of it is understanding that you really can change your thoughts and that there's another part of us that has absolute control over what the mind is doing. Mm-hmm. And what we need is to practice the tools, know what the tools are, but to practice those tools. So when I wrote that in the quote you've just used, that comes from my own experience. That's not a wishful thinking thing. It's knowing that is how it has been for me. And so we've got to get over the idea that being calm and peaceful means being complacent and half asleep. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. It means that we are so alert, so aware that we can make choices and we're not blown over by the wind when we're in those times when other people, because we also know we can be around people who love creating whirlwinds with their own behavior. They use it as a strategy to throw you off. So when I've been in situations like that, and this is where we'll get to meditation as well, ultimately, is it's a two-way thing. A still mind helps us to meditate, but a meditation helps us create a still mind. Mm-hmm. So we will find that the more we practice, because the 8 elements are practices and self-mastery is a practice, not a theory, that when we practice these things, it will become automatic that in the moments that we need them, they'll be there. It's exactly the state we'll go into, and we actually don't have to make a decision about it. It's just there. That's where we go. So it's the reason that you practice so much before you get to play. If you're on a team sport, you're probably practicing more than you're playing for the actual game. So it's the same with the self-mastery practices. You keep doing them, learning from them, seeing the impact they have, what worked, what didn't work, how did that happen, what did I do that I got to there, using the journal in order to be able to say, I'm actually learning this. This is becoming part of me and who I am and what I bring to the situation.
That's beautiful. Genuinely love it, because I think it's something that, again, I always say it sounds simple, but it's actually, it really is. I think it's a matter of people being aware, people giving themselves a hug, giving their mind a hug, being, gracious with your mind, with your body. I think it's like you said, it's practicing, practice, not perfection, one step at a time. For folks that aren't as comfortable practicing mindfulness, um, being calm and peaceful, find a way that allows you to do it, whether it's just sitting down with a blank sheet of paper and a pen, listening to a song, having a loving conversation, maybe eating, like you said, some good food or listening to some good music. I think there are things that you can do that just allow you to breathe
Yeah,
and just
breath. Absolutely. And I absolutely would want to mention that too, is the quickest way. And when I have worked with executives, it's been a few instances where I was with a woman one day and she was having a panic attack, and I saw her, knew she didn't look good, and she said, I need you now. And we went into a room on our own, and the first thing I did was just start to breathe with her and match her breath. And then I started to change my breath to slow it down. And she started, because we mirror neurons kick in. So she started to then unconsciously mirror my breath. And then I was saying to her, you're safe. It's okay, you're safe. And we just sat for a while before she started to talk about what had happened and what had triggered her feeling like she had to leave the office, because I saw her fleeing.
Mm-hmm.
And I happened to pick the photocopier and said, are you okay? No, I need you now. Okay. So we can, these are extreme things, but the thing is, don't make them extreme. It's more, be caring enough about yourself and responsible enough to know that you actually have got control over what's going on in your mind. And as you say, you can put on some lovely music. I usually then will go and get my more spiritual books and poetry and things, and I'll read them. I'll put different words into my mind in the middle of the night when I can't sleep. And if I've got into a stress way of thinking and being and I can't sleep, because it happens. This is the thing, it's not perfection, right? It's not that it never happens. It's build a toolkit, build it within yourself, and less of that will happen. But when it's starting to happen, you can say, I've got a choice in this moment. Am I going to let myself get really involved with this and just get angry about it or indulge it? Or am I going to say, you know what? I do know ways to change this. So I will.
Make that choice.
Make the choice. So detachment, the ability to stand back and witness, that comes through meditation, allowing your higher self, because your higher self is the one who's telling you you've got a choice. It's the other part. The higher mind is saying to you, wait a minute, do you want to be like this? Do you really want to think like this? There is another part of us that is, otherwise we wouldn't know what we were doing or saying, like Sam didn't at the time. His higher self had kind of, it had gone missing. So, but the moment we can say, I don't like how I'm feeling, I don't like what I'm thinking, that is our higher self speaking. So make a choice for something better.
Love it.
That's really what it is.
No, Indira, thank you. I
Pleasure.
I do feel that there's so much here that, when Indira and I discuss this topic again, it's all about making it bite-sized, make it digestible. So folks who are white belts out there, as I'm now starting to use that expression, can start to grasp and start to appreciate and acknowledge that this is an element that is one of 8 practices that can help you towards self-mastery. So as part of that transformation, hey, that can benefit you both personally and professionally. Keep these thoughts in mind, give it a shot. I think the simple practices that Indira you've shared with us today are absolutely brilliant. So I'll give them a go myself. So thank you so much.
Next time we'll look at energy and how thinking impacts on our energy, but also how our energy can then also have a positive impact on what actually goes on in our mind as well. It's all related.
I'm all about no, they're all interconnected. These are absolutely things that they interlock, and we're going to chat more about how they all come together at a later stage too. Cool.
Love your mind, make your mind your friend.
No, you're in a relationship with it. You can't get rid of it. So you may as well find a way to live with it.
It wants to help you. It wants to be calm.
I agree.
It wants to be still. It wants to be great. So yeah.
Well, as we say, still mind and a wise heart.
Wise heart. Yeah.
Indira,
thanks
Anil.
So
much. Pleasure. I'll speak to you soon.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone. Bye, folks.
Bye. Bye all.